DREDGE, a cosmic horror fishing game, has become one of the breakout indie hits of 2023, selling well over 200,000 copies in just 2 weeks since its release on Steam alone, resulting in more than $5 million in sales. This is the definition of the indie dream, where Black Salt Games, a small team of just 4 developers based in New Zealand, beautifully executed on their idea, which took about 2 years to make. But how exactly did they do it? The more I looked at this game, the more I realized that this was no accident, but rather they used a 3-step strategy to launch the game to astronomical success, which brings us to step 1, an ingenious hook. In order to capture player interest, every game needs a hook, a concise, attention-grabbing description that shows off its unique selling point, for example, DDR roguelike or Pacific Rim Tactics, where in this case, cosmic horror fishing game pretty much sums it up, being unlike anything else on the market and subverted expectations. Cosmic or eldritch horror was and continues to be a staple in games, influencing everything from Darkest Dungeon to Bloodborne, and of course, the entirety of the Souls-like genre, generally leaning towards combat-heavy titles. Fishing, on the other hand, is a well-worn mechanic that is often used in farming sims or cozy games, where meshing these two concepts together results in something unique and different. This, of course, has to be backed up by all the components that make up a game, beginning with visuals and art style. First impressions are everything, and the muted colour scheme of various shades of brown, grey, blue and green, punctuated by the occasional splash of red or yellow for contrast, effectively conveyed this game's atmosphere of dread, where you can imagine the stark difference if this game looked like Moonglow Bay instead. Continuing on in the visuals department, the fog that rolls in at night further amplifies the tension, limiting visibility and creating a sense of uncertainty that is perfectly aligned with the horror theme. You need to switch on your lights and move very slowly for fear of hitting stray rocks, damaging your ship and losing cargo in the process. This is also tied into a panic meter, which makes you see things at night, of rocks that might or might not actually be there, ghost ships, phantom land masses and more, being perfectly aligned with the theme. The game's music and sound effects were also masterfully executed, where the ambient sounds and lack of music is actually what makes it stand out. Sure, there are creepy piano tunes when you're in town and at certain locations, but when out at sea, it's just the waves and the birds. The stillness quickly turns terrifying at night, where the sound of silence leaves players to their own devices, imagining the horrors that lurk in the dark. But making a game is not all about art and music, with step 2 being a critical component in the compelling gameplay loop. I've often talked about gameplay loops on this channel, where the game has a simple but tried and true formula. Step 1, you go out to fish. Step 2, you sell your catch. Step 3, you upgrade your boat so that you can catch more fish, and repeat over and over again. Gameplay loops have to be well designed to keep a player hooked, where putting upgrades right at the end of it is genius, since that just makes the player want to go out again for another round to test out the new upgrades, which then starts the cycle all over again. However, a pure repetition of this cycle might become boring, which is where the game throws in the missions and side objectives. Minor spoilers here, but you need to dredge up wreckage from the sea in order to find mysterious trinkets and artifacts, feeding into the whole eldritch horror thing. This means venturing out further and further from the starting location to get to these shipwrecks, forcing the player to explore and to get into some unknown territory, breaking the loop at least temporarily until the player gets to a new location with new fish to catch. Speaking of which, I honestly believe that there is a completionist in all gamers to some extent, where as long as you have a catalogue or a museum or a bestiary to fill, players will inherently want to complete that to see everything that the game has to offer and to catch 'em all, so to speak. See the insane popularity of Pokemon as a prime example, so if that's a fit for your game, certainly give this a try. Going back to the loop, something that I found particularly intriguing is that this game, again, subverts expectations in that the primary currency is not money, but time. Sure, money is required for upgrades and repairs, but every day is a desperate struggle to fish and dredge for resources that you need before it gets dark, since the night is dark and full of terrors. The first time that you are caught out at sea with no visibility, with increasing madness making you hallucinate, and even having eldritch monsters taking chunks out of your ship, is truly a terrifying experience as you beg and pray for the sun to shine once again. The developers, however, have stated that they are not horror game fans, but instead have an appreciation for horror-type levels in regular games, where as someone who isn't the biggest fan of horror games myself, I can certainly identify with. The signature inventory Tetris system that is the other half of the gameplay in this game has been compared to Resident Evil 4, but the developers have not played it, but just thought it was a natural fit. It is another source of tension since you can lose fish and items if your hull gets damaged, increasing the stakes, especially at night, as you carefully make your way back to safe harbour. But there's yet another twist and subversion of expectations here, since you might think that with all the eldritch horror stuff going on, that the developers might want to force you to engage with that, but they have very cleverly made that optional and let players choose. In theory, you could fish in the day, get to a safe harbour and sleep till the next day, and still be able to complete the game, allowing the developer to get the attention of people who prefer a slightly less stressful experience. Giving players the ability to choose and the freedom to tweak their experience is always a good way to get more broad interest, unless that directly conflicts with the core idea and concept of a game like the super punishing Super Meat Boy. All of these, however, will be ineffective without the most critical step 3, in that once you have a great idea and gameplay systems to support that, developers need to market the game in order to get traction. Steam wishlists are a great indication on the possible commercial success of a game, since a percentage of that directly converts, and the more wishlists you have, the more likely it is to get recommended by Steam's algorithm. But since Steam wishlist data is not publicly available, let's use Steam followers as a proxy, with the rule of thumb being 10 times followers is the wishlist number. This chart is kind of insane, so let me take you through it. For the longest time, it was in the low hundreds, where the developers launched their Steam page up early, but didn't do much active promotion, instead focusing on making the game itself. Things started to pick up in September 2022, and then a big jump in October, culminating in about 20,000 on the date of release, estimated to be 200,000 wishlists, which is not bad at all. Most impressively, post-launch, this number absolutely skyrocketed to more than double, which I would attribute to the game's press and content creators showcasing this title, getting the attention of big-name creators like Jacksepticeye, Gaps Molders, Blitz, Northern Lion, Splattercat, and ACG. So what happened in October 2022? The developers had the lucky 1-2 punch of both the Steam Next Festival as well as PAX Australia over that period, releasing a 30-minute demo for people to try, which was tremendously well received. It's funny how we came full circle, since demos are a thing once again, and with the rise of digital events on Steam, make sure to use this opportunity to showcase your game. Also, it would be remiss of me to forget to mention publisher Team 17, who has an excellent track record so far with their titles and did not disappoint with DREDGE. This includes localization into 10 different languages, as well as the simultaneous global launch on all modern platforms, which, as you might imagine, might be tough for a 4-person studio to pull off. Subscribe for more breakdowns and learn more about the wonderful Stacklands in this video.